the cloud. Okay, thanks, Bridget.
Okay, I think I'm kicking off. Hi, everybody. My name's Hamish. I'm just coming out of 5 days of COVID, so I'm a little bit kind of husky. We're going to be talking today about the Portland Soundtrail. So the Portland Soundtrail actually is one project on the Soundtrail's locative audio app. And it's one of about 28, 29 projects that are on there now. The Soundtrail system itself is kind of getting more and more projects as we continue to go. But to just kind of drill into Portland, it's this little town on the western side of the Blue Mountains, and it's got a coal manufacturing sort of. It's in a coal manufacturing sort of area, and it was a really large industrial hub for cement manufacturing, particularly. It started off in the sort of the early 1900s, but I think it really hit its sort of peak in the post-Second World War period with the Reconstruction period. They call it the kind of the town that built Sydney on account of the sheer tonnage of the cement that came out of Portland. So it had, I think at one point, 900 men who were sort of permanently employed there. It was a town of around 3,000. Highly sort of stratified with the unions and managers, and so we had the opportunity to build this Soundtrail by way of them wanting to create a tourism experience, a sort of cultural heritage tourism experience, I think, around the old industrial precinct, and then round parts of the old quarry, which is where they dug up the limestone, and then through the small town itself. So by way of kind of going in here, just to start off with, what I might do is I might just play you. I'm just going to share my screen here, and I'm just going to give you share sound. I'm going to go here. I'm going to just basically share with you a little teaser, which we've now got on the up and coming website, which is launching next week. And even though this is directed at what we call the Soundtrails Academy program, it'll give you a good feel of Portland. Can everyone see that screen?
Yep.
You can see that screen? Okay, here we go. Is that going to go?
A word of warning. This is no romance or whitewashed history or textbook info tour.
I was born Willywar Street in the house belonging to the Commonwealth Portland Cement Company in them times.
So if we open up here a hotspot, we can see that we've got the name, the image.
On the one hand, there's the real or physical world, and on the other hand, there are voices, sounds and stories that can draw us in on so many levels.
What's down there in the lake now? What's hidden in this story?
If we come over here to the hotspots, there's no route, there's no start, there's no finish. So they're free to walk around the tombstones.
There are things lost, like from sunken pirate ships down there. Somebody told me there is a whole navvy excavator, 200 feet deep down in the mud at the bottom.
Yes, I'm going to stop sharing. Back over to you, Virginia.
Okay, just checking the sound. Yeah, that's a fantastic. Part of that was made, of course, when we were in the process of making Portland. I'm hearing a very loud noise. I don't know where that's coming from, Hamish. Is it you or?
No, it's not me. So I've got a hissing sound coming through too.
Yeah, I can hear this hissing sound. For what that is. But anyway, I'll keep going. I'll ignore it. Can anyone else hear that hissing sound?
Yeah. It sounds like someone's letting the air out of a balloon or something.
But everyone's got their sounds off, and it's certainly not here.
It's gone.
Right. Okay. Yeah, so you had those wonderful images of part of what is left of the Portland cement works, and of course, it's not just one thing. This is a one industry town, pretty much. There's coal also. Everyone in that town kind of has a place. It's a defined, limited place, which was so wonderful for us to explore, to uncover, to interact with the people. And of course, that's so important to a project like this, the community interaction. But I think, yeah, what we have in the visible surface are these heritage, designated now heritage buildings that have been salvaged bit by bit. They're being fixed up a bit. But the vast amount of what was in Portland and what was that factory, that has all disappeared. So what does a sound trail, or what does this kind of landscape audio documentary do? It hopefully can take us beneath the surface, and not just take us in a way when we might be reading about history, but to connect us through voice to place, because all of those voices are very deeply embedded in place. What I thought I'd do before I introduce Hamish more and more about this particular work is to give you some sense of where this kind of locative audio landscape documentary, there's so many words to describe it, and Hamish is now currently researching it also. But I'd like to give you a little bit of a sense of the history of that. So I've just got a very brief slideshow which will do that and just take us on a kind of journey around that. So I'll just have to share my screen to do that very quickly. Okay, sharing screen. I don't think I should need sound with this one. Okay, just let me, you can see my screen, and let's just see what I've got here. Now, are you just seeing the single screen of the Soundwalk, or are you seeing where it says click to add notes? That's what always is a worry.
We've got slide 1 of 28.
Oh, right.
Give us the full view.
Yeah, so I need to go.
Slideshow.
Just trying to find it.
Up the top.
Sorry.
Yep, up the top.
Slideshow.
That's it. Yep.
Okay, but it's sort of, yeah, just, I might just stop it. Yeah, sorry, I'm just going to go back. There we are. So I let it play. So, yeah, this just provides you with some context. What you're seeing is a whole lot of things which give a backstory to what is an app that Hamish and his developer and company have been developing over many years. There is a background to this in terms of the production of sound, the idea of audio documentary, acoustic film. Apps like here's an early one of Hamish, an earlier image from Hamish's sound trails, connect with people, places and communities. Some of the earlier pioneering audio tours were made by Soundwalk. They were based in New York, but also involved producers in Paris. These are from the early 2000s. This was a really big project made by the Kitchen Sisters, Public Radio, the Sonic Memorial Project, that used Paul Auster as the lead host to take us to that period post the destruction of the World Trade Center. Passing Stranger, a walk in the East Village of New York, beautiful work that brings the voices of the poets of the Bowery back. And of course, you've got the maps and a path through, narrated again by someone significant there, Jim Jarmusch, a film director. But you have the actual voices of the poets and archives. Paik Malinowski was the producer of that. And you can see also the accoutrements of how you get this audio, how you rub up against it. You use microphones that one might expect you to use in film, or I would say that have been used for decades in audio feature making. Hackney here, there is this idea of augmenting reality, which maybe Hamish will talk about later too, that you don't cover up the reality as in virtual reality and create a new one. You extend it, you open portals to that reality that we cannot visibly see or touch. There are many artists who've had a prominent role in extending the boundaries of this area. Janet Cardiff and George Burris Miller are two of those. And she's using binaural recording with the dummy head or the Kunststoff microphone, which records 3D dimensional sound. And of course, nowadays we're getting a lot more of these audio tours. This is from New York, where they're recording what is in effect a kind of radio play at the Met. We can go back to the work of Tony Schwartz, a guy that developed a tape recorder and wandered around one district of New York recording it. He is a precursor, and he makes these kinds of audio tours, which are released on Folkways Records, some of them, but he had other places. Some of you will know of the Walter Ruttman's Symphony of a Great City, a movie made for in the 1920s. He also made the first audio tour, I would say, in Berlin, of Berlin. Detours, Hamish might mention Detours, a company with very high-end sophisticated production. Landscape documentary, a term coined by Chris Brooks for battery radio, a feature maker, a long history in feature making and public broadcasting. And then he ventured into the audio tour. This is from his battery tours in Newfoundland. Beautiful work, richly embroidered, detailed with the voices of history from the actual place. And there are annual events now like Walk, Listen, Create. Hamish is involved with that on the jury. It has been very much involved on a number of those that have come out of the UK. And this is, of course, happening all around the world. This is a beautiful one, Les Promenades Sonores from Marseille in France. And this is how they give you a sense of all the different kinds of tours that they have by subject matter, place. And there are other precursors that I see for my own work and that connect to this work. Jan Parenthoen from French National Radio, the Documentaire de Création of Kay Mortley, who of course is Australian, but went to work in Paris with the Atelier de Création Radiophonique. This is sophisticated sonic documentary of an auteur kind that takes significant time, reflection, and craft to make. This is a more recent producer working more in the art realm, Duncan Speakman from Bristol. And then we come back to where we started with a microphone and a plate. So just take you out of that. So that's some context. There's too much. It's a big field, but it's not well known enough about. I'm going to stop sharing. Hamish.
Yeah, great. Okay, fantastic, Virginia. So just to give you a little bit of context as to how come Virginia and I sort of got together, and I'm here. Yeah, look, Virginia's clearly got all these runs on the board in terms of working in this area, which I was really fascinated by. I'd done a lot of work in the ABC Radio National as a feature producer there, and I was really interested in this idea of Virginia's experience in working with that long format radio program, and the idea of the sort of the imaginary, the way that the sound can sort of take you into these imaginary places. And I knew that Virginia had worked with Radio National in that beautiful time, you know, when it was a highly sort of creative sort of place for audio producers back in the day in the late 80s and the 90s. And I think I could sort of see that we both sort of shared this love of kind of what audio can do as an enabler. And I think for me, often that's overlooked in terms of the visual or the simulation or the sort of the artifice of the imagery. So that was primarily kind of the reason why I think it was a really nice fit to work with Virginia, and also knew she was doing this work with the, this ARC project she's been working on with the interviews with people from the ABC. So it made a lot of sense for us to work together on a project like this to see sort of how we could complement each other. Virginia.
Well, yeah, I was very excited to work with Hamish. He's moved from the feature area, and some of his features, I would say, are really rich pieces. They're often portraits. They're often getting very close to someone. They may be based in interviews. And of course, a lot of this does have what we might call traditionally the interview. And, the interview here is a portal again. It's a space that needs to be opened. And I knew that Hamish had done that with his interviews, portrait interviews that he'd done for Radio National, again, long form for programs that used to be called, there was one called Radio Eye, 360 Docs. These are all spin-offs or programs that developed out of the ones that I was working on called The Listening Room and Surface Tension. So the interview is a space. It's a space between two people or three, perhaps, where if you give it time, if you have the kind of skills and you're open as an interviewer, which Hamish is, you allow the person to sit there and think. You may not be looking like a journalist would look at it, at the interviewee face to face. You might sit next to them. You might not be looking at them. You allow silence so that they can open up. You certainly do research so that you can trigger things and you can guide, but you also have to stop and just let them speak, and a memory will arise out of that forgetfulness, perhaps, by small triggers, by movements of the body. So, I was interested in Hamish's work in that regard. Of course, we had a relationship from working in the same place. Hamish has also been working in writing, creative writing. He was shortlisted for the Premier's Literary Award. He was an international Third Coast audio documentary winner. I was keen to work with him because I knew that this kind of work with sound trails was going to expand where I was interested in working. And in a way, it wasn't possible to make those long form works so easily for Radio National anymore. And I was more and more fascinated because of having looked at all of this and listened to this material of this landscape documentary, Chris Brooks's work, other kind of audio tours or explorations of space. I just thought what they were doing with sound trails was amazing. Hamish was on board as a PhD student, but we were meeting as equals. We were sharing this authorship and this discovery. I think what I was bringing, hopefully, also is a way of bringing in writing. Portland, one might imagine, is a very male place. It's a factory where men work. There's very few women that could get jobs there. We did talk to some of the women that did. But it's not as if the women aren't there, or the children for that matter. So I think that I brought that. Hamish has a great way of just watching him work with some of the men, like going out in the field, going out in a car, being a bit of a larrikin with the boys. These are guys in their 70s and 80s. This really brought them out, and watching those sorts of things was fantastic. Just this whole custom app of what was possible. The idea of augmenting reality was much more interesting to me than virtual reality. I didn't want to escape from reality. I wanted to understand it better. I wanted to take an audience a public into this very closed world that was Portland. For 100 years it was there. How many of us knew about it? in Sydney. It was a revelation to actually spend this time in Portland and bit by bit discover what the people had to say. And it was like, I thought, I haven't lived, I haven't known my region, I haven't known this world. I've got snippets of it. I had an uncle actually who worked in the steelworks in Newcastle. And I think that also drew me to this subject. I wanted to find out what it was like to be a worker all your life, hard-working, hot, horrible accidents all around you, people maimed, losing an arm, dying. This was Portland, and what sort of effect did it have on the children? And how could the women find a way through this to assert their identity, to come up with incredible ideas, which we find in Portland they did. So, I think Hamish and I won't keep going, but I think we've got a sense of that working relationship.
Sorry. Okay, can I come in now? Are you okay?
Yes.
Sorry about that. I apologise. I'm just aware we're kind of, it's going to be tight.
Yep.
So I'd like to now share my screen again, and I'm just going to share that. Okay, your share screening. Can everyone see that now? You can see basically the Soundtrails app. Can everyone see that? Can I get a reply? Yep. Okay. So this is the Soundtrails app, and this is the public sort of front end of what you would see. And we can see different sound trails here. We can see one of the most, one we get the most downloads on is the Wallamombi Falls, which is up in the New England Highlands. That was done by a beautiful sound producer called, that was Nicole Kirby, that's right. And we've got that, you can see all the sound trails on there. There's more coming on. But this is basically what we're looking at here. What we've kind of got, and we've got this different interface here, is we've got, these are public, these are what we call published sound trails. If I come into this burger menu on the top left and I press that, we've got this thing called the sandpit. And if I come into the sandpit, then all of a sudden we've got a portal into all these experimental pieces, which people aren't necessarily publishing, but they're playing around with, using them to explore, to test, to make mistakes, and to sort of try out different projects. If they want to step through to being published, then we curate them, because we don't want kind of all and sundry coming into the Soundtrails platform. But I just wanted to point it out, and you'll see there that each of them have got a code. GUZP, Y5HJ, they're all codes, and you can see here I can put a code in and then I can go back, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to come back to the home page again, and I'll just show you what Portland looks like. We've got a carousel of images here, you know, kind of depicting kind of the place. We've got information about Portland, credits and contributors, all that sort of stuff. And then if I go start, that's where basically the actual locative experience starts to happen. And you can see here that we've got a start point with the S, and you can see that we've got the finish point, which finishes at the swimming pool. And you can see that we've got a trail, which pretty much goes, it goes up to the first story here, which is the furnace. And we've got this beautiful story here about the young boy who every morning he rides on his father's shoulders to the locomotives. And then we walk down through the workshop, which was that big building we saw before. We walk across the big open expanse past the what used to be called the hot water dam. And then we follow the red line. We come back onto the main street. We walk down Williwaw Street here.
Hamish, I was just going to say that is a really good point, the hot water dam, because of course there's no dam there anymore. And you do see these photos that we put on the app. Yeah. And what we expect is people to look out across what is just a field now. It's just a place that maybe is going to be some of it redeveloped. Yeah. And then you hear the voices relive and take us to the hot water dam and the kind of shenanigans they used to do, like swimming in the dam and things like that against the rules. And you get this whole life coming out just looking at this sort of empty space, really.
So the sort of I guess you would sort of say one of the kind of climaxes in terms of it being a narrative, which I think it is. It's definitely a narrative, but it's more like a sort of a documentary narrative, is this point here, which is the quarry, which is such an incredibly iconic sort of landmark for the town. And today it's basically, it's a great big blue dam. It looks quite picturesque in many ways, but it was the site of all sorts of, turmoil, a lot of deaths. It was a very dangerous place. So I'm just giving you an idea as to how the Soundtrail steps around. The other thing I wanted to point out was you can see here that we've got different types of coloured fields, where you can see basically we've got these green, these kind of slightly neon green things. Now, what that does is that basically shows me, if I'm a producer and I'm wanting to check out my walk before I actually publish it, is it shows me all the hidden fields. Because Soundtrails allows us to layer different audio fields on top of each other. And what we do is we give them different presets. So for example, at the start, you can see there's a green field round there. That is invisible. When someone arrives at that start point at the car park, a voice just starts to talk to you. You don't even know it's there. If you've got the app booted up, you'll see ahead of you at the foundations, you'll see that red field is ahead of you, and then the voice will say, now let's move forward. So there's invisible fields, there's visible fields, there's fields which play on loop. There's a range of different presets which we use to basically choreograph the locative story experience. And I think what we've got going here is we've got basically a new approach, I suppose, to place-based storytelling. And that's one of the things which really excites me about locative audio, because you're not taking away from the place, you're working with it, but it's across space and time. So that's the app itself, and I'm just going to kill that, and then I'm just going to come over here and here. And this is what we call the dashboard. So just to be clear, this is where a producer would come if they are making a sound trail. And you can see this is my dashboard. Everybody has their own dashboards when you come into the sound trail system. You can see we've got metrics here. For the month of October, we can see that Wallamombi Sound Trails is hitting the top with the downloads at the moment. But I'm just going to come in here to the sound trails, and we're going to have a look at the different sound trails that I'm responsible for. And then we can see all of these ones. And then we can see down here is Portland. You can see the codes there again, those codes which allow us to check it before it's published. And if I go into Portland here, and I'm just going to edit. So this is the back end, and this is basically where it all happens. And it's where the whole sort of designing of the locative audio storytelling experience kind of takes place. You can see we've got a name, we've got a description, we've got credits, we've got a thumbnail for the app. We've downloaded a custom map here, so we can have start points, the trail. We can add additional things to the actual site itself. We've got the landing images when you come in on the app, and we've got copyright. So all the copyright goes back to the people who own it. And then the next tab here shows us the different tabs, the different hotspots that we've got. And you can see if I come into the map here, for instance, if I go over the quarry, you can see that's a red one, and the quarry is over here. And that is what we call a visible field or a standard field. Whereas something like this, which is across the park, if we come here, that is the that Sewell Park. We've deliberately made that as an invisible field. You can see the audio is uploaded in there. And we've got that as a background field here. So we can set these different presets that determine how that storytelling experience is choreographed on the site. And I think that really, I don't want to get too sort of complex about this, but I just wanted to sort of show you this. This is the share and archive facility that we've got on Soundtrails. And this is a really powerful part of what we're building, because we don't just see Soundtrails as being one-offs. We see Soundtrails as being a legitimate, enduring project that has archival value. We think that these voices, these works that we're producing will have an enduring kind of quality. And so we've built three sort of factors into this. We've built this embed code, which means we can lift this map out and we can put it into any website, and it will bring up all the standard fields. They're the red ones, which are the more sort of standard beginning and end sort of stories. We've also got this STX URL, and we've got this package URL. Effectively, when you download those, you can see we've got this download button on here. Everything within the Soundtrail system, including the coding, along with all the data, all the audio, gets packaged up into those and can ultimately be redeployed or brought back into a different system.
Hamish, can I just say something here that's very important? I think Hamish is responding to, when I was showing you some of those other apps and other things that are out there, many of them have disappeared, just like a lot of digital media of past forms. You know, they're an archaeology and they get lost and we don't know if we can ever retrieve them. Whereas with this development and app and package, as you've said, Hamish is aiming at a kind of longevity, so that this material could be built upon, or it could stay as it is, but it is there for the long haul. It's there; those voices are there for the community and for the future.
Yep, sure. And the last thing I think I probably wanted to point out, Virginia, I think we'll have to touch on this pretty briefly, but just something we wanted to touch on was when you're coming back through the streets of the town, we've got this this story on this amazing woman called Mary Scheidel, who Virginia,
Mary Ryan.
Mary Ryan. Sorry, COVID brain. Mary Ryan. Virginia, do you want to just kind of? I'll stop sharing at this point, and you can have a chat about Mary Ryan.
Okay, well, yeah, so I've got a few slides of her up here, so I'll just get them in the background. Oh, I've got to share my screen, sorry. Hold on. Just get rid of that very quickly. Share screen. Okay, share. So Mary Ryan. Just want to, okay. Yeah, so I mean, this just gives us one example from the people that we interviewed in the archives that we explore and the research that we do behind it. One of the great discoveries of this piece was the work of Mary Ryan, who wrote volumes of diaries and lived in the town of Portland. She also had a significant impact on the beginning of new housing and the Housing Commission as it was developed in the post-war period, which is extraordinary for a woman, a working class woman of a small town like Portland at the time. And she spent actually a lot of time traveling to Sydney, to Canberra, all over Australia actually. But her diaries for us were amazing because they're so vivid at expressing the life of not only women but children and other people around her in Portland. And I think this is also connected to place. So there is an inventor, a guy who was the head of the company, the Portland Cement Company, that of course has branches all around the world. He's in Australia, and he's regarded as the father of Portland cement and in the Australian industry. And his name is on a lane, Scheidel Lane. Mary Ryan didn't live very far away from there, but there is no name for her in that town. A lot of the people in the town had never even heard of her. By chance, through an interview, I discovered one of her sons, who was Father Paul Ryan, 97 or something, living down near Port Kembla. He used to be a priest at Port Kembla. He was retired, and I went to interview him, and then got in contact with his nephew, who had all of the diaries, of the full diaries of Mary Ryan. And then I found out they're also deposited at the Jessie Street Library. So a project like this can make significant discoveries, and then we highlight those and bring them back for the community and put them into place. So we get some of the stories of Mary Ryan and the kind of impact that she had. And I would say there is actually a strong media history story here that I'm hoping to write up at some point, about how Mary Ryan commented upon, in the post-war period, a significant strike that occurred called the Butcher Girls strike, that has disappeared into history, really, but may have had an impact on determining the failure of yet another Australian referendum, one that was put forward by the Labor government in that period, 1944-45. Anyway, so I'll go out of that now. That's Mary Ryan.
Where are we now, Virginia?
I think we need to play some of our lovely audio, Hamish, so I could just bring that up, I suppose.
Yeah.
Do you want to say something else?
Yeah, sure. So, no, we'll just preface this, maybe this audio which we're about to play. This is when you walk around the dam, the mill pond. They call it the mill pond now, which is quite funny, really, because it's a sort of site of sort of mayhem and sort of, death and incredible industrial sort of turmoil. But today it's the mill pond, so it's this rather sweet, benign looking place where people sit there and fish and smoke and stuff. But we produced this piece, and I think that while I think every piece that we have produced has been done very assiduously, I think this piece to me probably speaks to that sense of the long format audio imagination, and where this can sort of go, where it can take you, and how it really differentiates itself much more away from those very linear. There's a lot of very linear, one-dimensional sound walks around these days, which are traditionally narrator and information. And I think this shows you where something like what we're doing really kind of is going in a very different direction. Go for it, Virginia.
Okay, so I have to share my screen again.
Share your sound as well.
Yes, I mustn't forget that. Share the sound.
Just imagine you're walking down from town to...
Well, I've got a few photos first, very quickly, to show you. Hold on. Actually, I don't want to play that audio there, so I'm going to take that out. I just realised I'm deleting the audio that's on there. Okay, so let's play that. Oh, sorry. Here we are. So you can see some of the images here.
They're the bottle kilns, the famous bottle kilns in Portland, by the way. Those ones in the back.
Yeah. So you're just seeing some of the images of the lakes, the two of them.
Yeah.
And so the walk that you do, you can walk around this bottom lake here. This is the walk that we actually go on, and then we listen to the recording that I'm going to play next. Yeah, let me just go out of that. Okay, so, and you can just see, I just this is a beautiful image here, which I'll, that's an image of when it's sort of half filling up, but you can see how big it is. Sorry, I should be showing these full size.
You got the audio there?
Yeah, I'll just show that one image. But that really gives you a sense of the men working in there, in the stone. Anyway, let me cut out of that. Okay, so everybody, I hope you can hear this. I'll just, I was hoping I could just leave that image up there. So, but anyway, I'll just play this.
You're coming up
Can
to
everyone
the old
hear
quarry,
it?
Yep.
or what's now called the mill pond. This is an easy 10-minute walk that takes you up to the north end near the bottle kilns. If you're not up for this trek, you might like to find yourself a nice spot overlooking the dam, and listen from there.
The quarry is now a lake, and the people of Portland like to take walks here or go fishing for the trout in abundance. What's down there in the lake now? What's hidden in this story?
There are things lost, like from sunken pirate ships down there. Somebody told me there is a whole navvy excavator, 200 feet deep down in the mud at the bottom. And maybe ghosts come back here some nights to look into the lake when there is a full moon, to try and remember how it was when they fell.
Well, first of all, I started off on the ropeway. Yes, full one going out, empty one coming back. And then I finished up driving a truck there, which I drove for many, many years. Yes, out of the quarry, out of probably 3 of the quarries, or 4 of them.
Well, the earliest one was Callaghan's, which is the one where the trout are in. And then that became number 1 quarry, number 2 quarry, and the one up the works is number 3 quarry. And that's how they work. This one here, the trucks used to drive to the bottom and bring the stone out. And then the box would pull it up, tip it out on the top up here, and go through the crushers, and then up here on the aerial ropeway, and later on the conveyor belt, which they conveyed the stone to the plant.
Well, I used to go down there, but it was before, just when the horse went out. Harry Gates or one of them had that big old horse down there. And I used to bring him up at times. He was an old horse that they used as a general carrying thing around the place, you know. Big old draft, big black fella with a white haired prince.
Reading my grandfather's memoirs of the Depression, he rode a bicycle all around New South Wales and worked on a number of the big projects that the government at the time had instigated to provide work for the unemployed. His name was Wally Fitzgerald, and when he landed in Portland, he thought the company was a good company because some of the places that he worked on in the Depression, he said, were just slave camps. They just worked the men to death.
When I was working down the quarries there was quite a few accidents there, fatals. But I just can't tell you how many. I can sort of remember about 4 maybe. I mean, one of my best mates was killed down here. It just happened.
William Barnes, 1 March 1901.
James Mitchell Bennett, Portland, 3 May 1920.
Isaac Myers, 21 December 1903.
Vincent McManus, 5 October 1910.
William Henry
He never
Spaulding,
used to talk about it
16
much,
February
but I know they used to lower him over the side of the quarries with the dynamite in his hand and down to place it where it was needed. So he never spoke much about it. I don't think he wanted to worry anyone.
In memorial,
Sudden was the call. His death surprised us all. 'Tis sad but true, we wonder why the best are always first to die.
I don't think they even had a harness. They might have just had it around their waist. And they went down and they were barring the loose rocks down and they didn't know what was above them. Well, they thought they knew what was above, but the rope would pick up something and knock it down and hit them on the head. Well, I think they only wore felt hats in them days. They didn't have hard hats.
Francis Augustus Matthews, 4 November 1942.
Virginia.
Killed by a huge fall of limestone. The weight of the stone which fell was estimated at about 200 tons. He found the deceased met his death from injuries accidentally received in a fall of stone.
Well, look, they had their bloody foremans down here and the deputy foremans, as you'd say.
Oh, Bill Thompson, he was in a
Bill
jeep,
Thompson,
wasn't he?
he was the quarry manager, and Harry Stewart used to look after the compressor up there and look after the ropeway.
Well, the one down the bottom, number 1 quarry is 230 feet. Number 2 quarry would be around about the 200. And Callaghan's I don't know, because it was one of the first earliest quarries.
I suppose I don't know, the men probably thought they had to do what they had to do, and they just did it, and accidents happened.
Accidentally received. Accidentally received. Accidental death. Witness Mr. Miller said that he had never yet been at an inquest where a mines inspector had been asked to give evidence. He would ask the coroner why that had not been done. The coroner admitted that there was a state duty to be performed. He found the deceased met his death from injuries accidentally received in a fall of stone.
Accidentally received.
Accidentally received.
Accidental death.
Woe and betide us if we weren't in by the 11:30 whistle.
Well, they use gelignite in the early stages, and then in later stages they use nitropril.
Just trying to stop it, everybody. I can't.
Put a detonator in it and blow the whole face out in one
I'm
go.
sharing your screen.
And you know, all of those people built their
That's it.
houses around the quarry.
Christians got a rock like that through the roof, and Rocky Rochester,
Sorry about
his
that.
daughter was playing the piano.
We've still got the sound coming through.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
can
still trying to stop it. Sorry.
you muting yourself?
Well, it's not a very glowing
Hold on.
report for the management of the time. The husbands that died, a lot of them had small children.
Thomas Yorkie Wild,
Okay.
17 February 1954.
That sound's still coming through, Virginia.
Death found to be of natural causes.
Sorry about that.
Right. Oh, well, look, Daniela had to leave and other people have to leave at 11, so we got 6 minutes. So,
Okay,
thanks,
sorry about
Virginia
that.
And Hamish, I'm just going to throw it open to any questions that whoever's left might want to ask.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I've done the walk at Portland and used the app, and I loved it. I've also done the Walker one as well. And I'm
Good on you, Justine.
Yeah.
I'm so pleased to hear it.
There's so many great towns out there to
Yeah.
go to and do this. But my question is, I've got lots of questions, and maybe I can chat to you later. But I'm really interested in the layering of memory
Yeah.
in the site and what that actually does, you know, in the now with the community in the present.
Yeah.
And what it does to the public space of the town, because a lot of those towns, they were designed in the 1920s and 30s around the cinema. There's a beautiful cinema in Portland, and that sort of privatization of memory and media and social media kind of really changes the public space. And I think you're doing something different with the sound walk and the use of the app on the phone, kind of in a material sense. So just interested, it's kind of really a comment, but I think it's fascinating what you're doing, and just really wanted to know if you had any reactions from the town about how it revalued the memories or the layering of history in the place.
I think for the locals and the visitors, they're two different things. And I think for the locals, there's this lovely sort of journal article somewhere around haunted landscapes. You know, when people are sort of using sounds to sort of reimagine or re-perform sort of public spaces. And I think it's very hard to kind of know what's actually going on inside locals' heads. I do know that when we did the focus group with a bunch of locals, you know, there were moments where some of them were in tears. There were moments where I think they were extremely proud to be walking it. I know the day before we'd had a couple of technical issues and we got resolved, so that the day that the locals did it, it was pretty seamless. And I think for them it's different. I think for tourists who are coming, I think they're going to sort of see the picture, they're going to sort of see Portland with a different lens. And I think audio is a very interesting thing. It's so sort of fluid. It's so sort of, it sort of seeps through from different memories and associations, and it brings, meanwhile you've got the physical world around you. I think audio, I don't understand quite yet, and I suppose part of this is about my PhD. I think there's a lot of competing interests in and around the space, and I think part of the casualty of that is that audio has been often jettisoned off in preference for this idea of there being a visual visual sort of glamour world of sort of visual stuff, and it's all done through the computer. Whereas I think something like Soundtrails does get you back on site. So I don't know, Justine, in answer to that sort of question, but I think that it'd be really interesting to do some long studies over something like this, because we've had Soundtrails in Mile Creek, for instance, going now for about 10 years. It'd be really interesting to sort of talk with people about where they see the value of this or how it's sort of impacted, because I think you're really kind of almost talking about re-mythologizing in some ways these landscapes.
Yeah. I think absolutely. I think there's an idea of voice and the idea of animating the landscape, the idea of anima. I think the voice carries that. It's not just a carrier of information. I mean, listen to those voices and the texture, the grain of those voices, the accents, the reflective nature, and then moving into being jocular, all of these kind of characteristics are there. It's suddenly alive. It's not a heritage landscape of buildings with plaques. And that's why I said the thing about Mary Ryan. Actually, the town people did not know about Mary Ryan. They really had no knowledge of Mary Ryan. So she has returned to the place somehow. I think hopefully it's doing both. Hopefully it's bigger as well. It's about industrial Australia. It's about the work that all of those people did, the tragedies, the sacrifices, the marks on those people of that landscape. And that should mark us somehow. We don't just look at it anymore as some old building. School kids say going there and doing the standard heritage thing. It's very different to Broken Hill. I've been to Broken Hill and seen the memorial for the miners. It really is all about the men, and that's fair enough. But here we have a sense of lives, shared, lived, loved community. There's a lot of love stories in this, and they're incredibly moving, and they're on the record now. It is a kind of witness.
Mm. Mm.
Okay, look, we've hit 11. We've lost a couple who obviously had to go to meetings. Justine, you've got experiences, so you'll probably want to talk to Hamish and Virginia later, and so will I, especially if I'm becoming associate supervisor on Hamish's PhD. So I'll have a lot more to say. Bridget, do you want to ask anything or make any comment before we finish?
You're on
mute.
Oh, we can't hear you, Bridget.
Yes, sorry. No, I have to get to another meeting, but that was absolutely fascinating. Thank you both. And Virginia, I'll talk to you offline about the referendum connection. I'm really interested in that.
Oh,
Intrigued.
Great. Yeah. Okay. That'd be good.
Okay. Thanks all. So I think we'll end up talking to Hamish and Virginia all separately. So thanks for a great seminar, both of you, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you for hosting it, John, and everybody who's here.
Okay.
Thanks,
Bye.
Hamish. Thanks, Virginia.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good weekend. Bye.
Yeah.